Hey there fellas, welcome to the Curiosity Facts channel. In today's book review we'll talk about the craziest, depraved and most bizarre psychological thrillers I've had the pleasure of reading in quite some time. I'm talking about Asa Harrison's debut novel, The Silent Wife, a masterclass in slowly ratcheting, unbearable suspense that'll have you questioning how well you really know even your closest loved ones. Now at first glance, the setup seems straightforward enough. We're introduced to Jody and Todd Brett, a couple pushing 60, settled into that comfy Chicago suburban lifestyle after over 2 decades of marriage. Todd's running his own successful boutique woodworking business, raking in that money. And Jody? Well, she's living out that privileged housewife fantasy, doting mother, pristine home, keeping up appearances in their idyllic neighborhood. From the outside looking in, these two have achieved that quintessential American dream, a hard-earned life of wealth, status and domestic bliss to bury themselves in as they creep toward retirement. Just the perfect portrait of marital serenity and... oh, but you'd be dead wrong, wouldn't you? Because that's when Harrison starts doing some straight-up Machiavellian sorcery with this utterly bewitching page-turner. See, at the novel's inciting moment, unassuming Jody stumbles upon the undeniable, damning proof that her wonderful husband Todd has been carrying on a nasty little affair with some young side piece. The lipstick smears, the inexplicable hotel charges, the constant unavailability. Todd thought he was so slick, but his deception starts unraveling right in front of our eyes. Now at this pivotal point, you're probably expecting the typical scorned wife meltdown, right? The righteous fury, the hysterics, the throwing dishes and kicking his lying behind right out on the street where he belongs. Maybe even lawyering up and raining hellfire down in the form of an obliterating divorce to take him for every last cent his cheating self has. But oh no, friends. No. That's just far too pedestrian and predictable for what Harrison has up her brilliant sleeves with The Silent Wife. Instead of erupting, instead of confronting, Jody just buries it all. She stows away the agony of her husband's ultimate betrayal and soldiers on, all while coolly, calculatingly making these meticulous preparations right under Todd's arrogantly oblivious nose. And I'm talking the kind of spine-shivering, goosebump-inducing preparations that'll have you leaning in with bated breath wondering, is divorce and financial ruination her end game? Is she trying to just extract her brutal, permanent pound of flesh and leave his selfish behind out in the cold? Or does Jody perhaps have something even more deranged, more sinisterly twisted in mind to make Todd pay for his sins? See, that continuously compounding sense of thick dread ratcheting up with each turned page is the true superpower of this novel. We're absolutely trapped inside the claustrophobic inner psyche and first-person narration of Jody Brett as this obsession with punishing her husband's betrayal begins to entirely consume her every waking thought. On the surface level looking in, she maintains that mousy, timid persona to perfection, the model of a subservient, mild-mannered housewife. But once we're plunged inside that brilliant mind of hers, we're swallowed whole into the roiling darkness, the ever-encroaching shadows of Jody's psyche as it becomes twisted into an arena for her morbid fixations. We're sickening voyeurs, seeing firsthand the sheer icy lengths and cold premeditation she'll go to in plotting her machinations against Todd. Each calmly calculated step and preparation sends shockwaves of unease down the spine. You almost want to yell at the pages, "No, Jody. Not like this, turn back while you still can." But like lambs being led to the slaughter, we can't tear our eyes away from her inexorable march deeper into the depravity of her barely constrained malice and depravity. Because while Jody remains coolly composed in her monstrousness as her plans progress, we're the ones buckled in for an unrelenting psychological roller coaster that'll leave our moral compasses truly shattered by the end. Harrison truly is a master of sustaining that sickening atmospheric dread through her unparalleled character work. The juxtaposition between Jody's deceptively placid outer life and the roiling madness unfurling in her interior monologues is part of what makes being kept lurching passenger in her psychology so utterly unsettling. On the one hand, we have Todd, the smug, entitled husband obliviously soaking up the good life and having his cake while eating it too with the mistress. He's the epitome of arrogance, remaining completely blind to the devastatingly brutal, potentially even physically violent storm brewing in the mind of his betrayed wife. His ego just will not allow him to even conceive of the true depths of darkness Jody could be descending into right under his very nose. Speaking of that mistress though, while she may be the inciting catalyst sparking Jody's thirst for vengeance, Harrison is careful not to let her remain some cheap femme fatale trope or scapegoated villain in the proceedings. Because ultimately, the far more chilling and compelling villainy stems from the diabolically skewed inner workings of our protagonist's skewed psyche as she becomes possessed by her obsessions. This is an unflinching study in the monstrous potential of the human mind to justify increasingly abhorrent actions, and the mistress runs laps around being the least threatening entity involved. The true danger Harrison wants us to confront emerges in how each burrowed revelation into Jody's perverse interior monologues seems to pull us deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole right alongside her. What begins as seemingly justifiable anger and sadness in the wake of betrayal soon devolves into the clinical musings of a possible psychopath taking perverse delight in contemplating increasingly nightmarish machinations. And Harrison masterfully wields the first-person narration to implicate us all as complicit voyeurs to Jody's depravity through a refusal to sensationalize it. At its core, The Silent Wife is an unflinching, unsettlingly grounded meditation on the diabolical potential for darkness lurking underneath even the most serene surface of human domesticity. Marital deception, all-consuming obsession, a thirst for vengeance, these core themes seamlessly bleed into a dissection of how facades and illusions of propriety can conceal the most twisted psyches and premeditations even from our loved ones. How not a single one of us can truly claim to know the full depths of what our partners, our spouses, our family members could be capable of when pushed to the edges of their psyches. Harrison forces us to confront those murky unconscious waters churning within us, all that most would prefer stay suppressed through her complete immersion into Jody's haunting point of view. With clinically detached, even-keeled prose chronicling each newly devolved boundary Jody's mind crosses, we cannot help but be shaken in our own perceptions of morality. Maybe there truly are monsters lying in wait behind even the most mild-mannered masks, just waiting to be awoken by the right slight or sin against them. By denying us any release through seeing events from Todd's oblivious perspective, we're made complicit captives on Jody's descending spiral into the abyss of depravity. We cannot hit the eject button or untether ourselves from her increasingly sordid fixations once her hooks have sunk into our psyches. We're forced to continue bearing witness to the bitter finalizations of her machinations until its utterly shattering, haunting conclusion that'll be burned into our brains for ages to come. So, if you've got the mental fortitude to withstand having your soul shaken to its core by being made voyeur to one woman's all-consuming obsession mutating into outright depravity, I cannot more vehemently shove The Silent Wife into your hands. Asa Harrison has crafted a true masterwork of unrelenting psychological terror that'll have you double-checking those closest to you for any cracks, allowing their own monstrosities to start peeking through.